All right, so this is a fairly important lecture as a number of people tend to have issues with run-ons, comma splices, and fragments. And while other grammar issues may not be caught by non-English teachers, almost all your instructors are going to catch your run-ons, comma splices, and fragments. So this will not only help you writing in your English classes, but it'll help you writing in your history classes, sociology, psychology, science classes, anywhere where you have to write. So a run-on sentence is when you have two independent clauses and it's missing the punctuation necessary. And again, length does not matter. Be careful. Just because something's short doesn't mean that it can't be run on. And just because something's long doesn't mean that it is a run on. So this sentence here, I am home, my mother is home also, is a run on. There's two sentences there. I am home, and then my mother is home also. And because it's not punctuated between the two sentences, it's a run on. Now, this sentence looks like it would be a run on, but it's not. They came ambling and stumbling, tumbling and capering, kiltering their gowns for leapfrog, holding one another back, shaking with deep, fast laughter, smacking one another behind, and laughing at their rude malice, calling to one another by familiar nicknames, protesting with sudden dignity at some rough usage, whispering two and two behind their hands. This is not a run on. You have a subject, they, you have a verb, came, and then everything after that are just adverbs telling you how they came. They came ambling and stumbling. They came tumbling and capering. They came kilting their gowns. Not a run on sentence. So don't think just because something's short or because something's long, it is or is not a run on. Now, the way you correct a run on is three main ways. You separate it into two sentences with a period. So where there should be punctuation, there isn't, you put a period. And you uppercase the first word of the second independent clause. You can join with a coordinating or an adverbial conjunction or a semicolon. So instead of a period, you could put a semicolon, then you don't have to uppercase. Or you can put a comma and one of the fanboys, for, and, nor, but, yet, so, right? Or you can make one independent clause a dependent clause by using a subordinating conjunction. So a word like when is a subordinating. So when I am home. Anyway, so here's these corrected. So the run-on was I am home, my mother's at home also. I am at home, period. Uppercase the M, my mother's at home also. That fixes that sentence. I am home at home, semicolon. However, uh, my mother is at home also. So be careful of that. The however can also go in the middle of an independent clause, in which case it's just offset. But here it begins the second independent clause. I'm at home, comma, and my mother's at home also. So that's one of the fanboys. And for and nor. And now you're good. I realize also because some people put the comma after the coordinating conjunction, after the and. No, it goes before. I'm at home, semicolon, my mother's at home also. And the last one is where we make the independent clause the dependent clause. Even though I am at home. Now that can't stand by itself. It has to be joined with an independent clause, which is my mother's at home also. Those are the ways you correct it. Now, comma splices occur when two independent clauses are separated with only a comma. So this happens quite a bit because people realize, wait a minute, I need punctuation between these two independent clauses, but they use the wrong punctuation. They put a comma instead of the proper punctuation. So here you can add a coordinating conjunction or an adverbial conjunction or change the comma to a semicolon. You can divide the comma into two separate sentences by changing the comma to a period, or again, you can make one independent clause a dependent clause, and then you don't have the run on. Fragments are just a group of words that do not make up a complete thought, so many times a dependent clause is to blame. People think that they've got a complete clause, but they don't because they have one of these subordinated conjunctions turning the independent clause into a dependent clause. So while watching TV is not a complete thought. That needs to be joined with an independent clause. I ate popcorn is an independent clause. So you can't have while watching TV, period, I ate popcorn. You have to have uh, a comma there. While watching TV, comma, I ate popcorn. So usually a semicolon or a period is to blame. So when Johnny walked home, all the cats followed him. You can't have when Johnny walked home by itself. So what you do is you close your eyes and you say to yourself, when Johnny walked home. Now I'm asking a question, well, what happened when Johnny walked home? All the cats followed him. So that has to be joined to the idea of when Johnny walked home. And you can't use a semicolon because the semicolon works the same as the period. So when Johnny walked home, all the cats followed him. This is also, excuse me, this is also why I say to read your essays out loud. And if you have to go down in the basement to do it because you're embarrassed to read it out loud and have somebody hear you do it, you'll hear when you're pausing and you haven't put proper punctuation. So dependent fragments to correct them, you just join them with the independent clause. So when Johnny walked home, change the period or the semicolon to a comma. All the cats followed him. Lower the case, the a, and you're in good shape. Phrases and fragments. A phrase can never be a complete thought because it's missing a subject or a predicate. And that's why you can't have that. It says every independent clause, every sentence needs a subject and a predicate, right? Which a predicate is just the verb and whatever associated words you need for the sentence to make sense. So to correct, just add the missing subject or verb. Sure, the phrase is an independent clause. Uh, to make a mistake, that can't be by itself. But if I join it with the predicate, is not fatal. So the verb is and the associated word is not fatal to complete the thought. To make a mistake is not fatal. All right. Highly recommend you read the chapter in your book, the section in your second book about run-ons, comma splices, because we would do a lot more work if we were in an on-ground class on this, and there'd be a lot more examples on the board, etc. This is the best I can do when we're doing it online, so you really should find other information out of your book to make sure you're good on this. All right, and there's a pretty extensive uh, grammar quiz on this.